All right. So a little quick introduction going from down the road. We got Pat. We got Anthony. We got Chris. We got Susan. I'm sorry I didn't get your name. Stella. And it's Anthony's sister, right? Maya. And then we got Anthony's father down at the end. So one of the things that I love about this movie, I wrestled, just so you know, 100 pounds. I didn't think they had a weight class, but they did. But I want to know, Chris, how did you get involved in this project and get introduced to this great family here?
Well, Pat and I wrestled in college together. We both wrestled for Seton Hall. We were both vying for the 118 spot. And I beat Pat 5-4. I like to remind everyone about that. And then I actually had to end the season early. I became sick, and then Pat actually took my spot, and then he got hurt, and then the spot was left open because no one really weighs 118. At least we shouldn't be weighing 118. And then we graduated, and Pat and I both coached. I coached for the first 2 years out of college. Pat taught and coached, and we actually ended up in the same district, fighting against one another, screaming at each other from the end of the mat, laughing at each other at the same time. And then I didn't become a teacher, so I couldn't live that lifestyle anymore of ending your day at 2:30 and coaching. So I walked away from the sport, and I lost touch with Pat for about 12 years, maybe 10, 12 years. And through the wonderful world of Facebook, Pat and I reconnected. And then in 2012, I went back to my first wrestling match in 12 years, the same district tournament that I had seen Pat at last. And Pat posted a picture of Anthony winning districts. And I wrote Pat while I was there, and I was like, "Are you here right now? Where are you?" And he was like, "No, I'm actually down the shore. I'm at a new school right now. But when you get a chance, take a look at this video." And he sent me a link, which was a sizzle reel that Ollie had done, about a 2-minute sizzle reel about his brother, the blind wrestler. And underneath it was a little blurb that said, I want to make a film about my brother, but I don't really have the resources to. If you're a producer, you're a camera operator, you're a composer, please contact me. I really want to make a film about him. So I contacted Ollie, and he was living out in California at the time. I guess the sizzle reel had been made at least a year or two earlier, and he said, he wasn't really doing anything with it. But I said, when you get back in town, let's sit down and talk and see what we can come up with. And a few weeks later, Ollie came back, had something to eat, and we basically decided we would make a film that would follow Anthony through his senior year, trying to accomplish these goals, and that's about it.
Great. One of the things that I love about this film, I think it's not a wrestling film, I think it's a family film. And I love the way each one of you guys, Rob and Susan, you really kind of believed in your son more than anybody. Obviously, I have a son, and that's true. But it must have been hard in the beginning, both Rob and Susan. I want to ask you, Robert, to watch your son wrestle. Was it hard in the beginning, or was it?
It was really never hard to watch him wrestle. It was probably harder to watch him ride a bicycle and run into parked cars. But, Sue really deserves a lot of the credit, because Sue's, pretty tough, She don't baby this kid, don't baby this kid. I was the enabler. Sue was the tough one. And, Anthony's success really comes from Sue, because she always made sure that, Sue said from the beginning that, I raised my kids to fly the coop, and this one's going to fly the coop. And that's what, the way it was. And, we supported him. I had a soft spot for him all the time. But, he was, Anthony just did what he was supposed to do. It's really not a story about a blind wrestler. It's a story about a wrestler, and
yeah.
And my family. And while I have the microphone, could I just say a couple things?
Go ahead.
Because I really wanted to.
Take as long as
First
you
of
want.
all, I want to know if Joey Drew was in the house, because he's like, I wanted to, you know, congratulate him, because it was always a crazy thing with Howell and SJB, and he was so much a part of the. He's like the Apollo Creed to Rocky in this movie, and I love the kid, and he's a tough kid, Joey Schultz. But also, I wanted to really thank the your film festival. Is incredible. I mean, this turnout. I mean, you should really give yourself a round of applause, because this is just nuts. And while
Thank you.
and while I have the microphone, there's a little royalty in the house.
Just so you know, Chris told me you're a talker.
Yeah. So there's a little royalty in the house, and we have to acknowledge royalty. So at the top is William Clark, Anthony's grandpa, who's here. About 91 years old, the father of 13 children, Sue. And also over here we have another gentleman who's John Bruno Sr., who's the commissioner in the New Jersey Film Commission of the state of New Jersey, who's here present tonight. 91 years old, God bless him, still going strong. More royalty, and so I'll give it up now.
Sue, did you want to add to any part of that? Yeah, I know you have 3 kids and a daughter. How did it feel to watch your son wrestle?
Oh, for me?
Yes.
Actually, to watch him wrestle made me happy, because is it on? Yes. Oh, okay. Actually, to watch him wrestle, it made me happy, because he was doing something, he had a goal, he was healthy. What didn't make me happy was the pressure I saw that he had to endure. And I think it was associated with this sport, as well as emotionally dealing with his visual impairment and trying to be just part of the kids, you know, normal, sighted population at 16 years old. I mean, but wrestling was very healthy, and I think it was a good discipline, and it gave him a sense of accomplishment. Everybody needs that.
Great, you're here. Now, before we go to the audience and I want everybody to ask some questions, I want to ask Anthony a question. I loved, maybe it's just me, that you went back to CBA and gave that speech. I want to know, what did you say?
I mean, it's really like my dad said, to hold a grudge is like the worst thing in the world. We just forgive people, and for me to go back there was a huge like healing moment for me, and just to like let go of all that bad energy and, you know, just negative feelings towards that, and just life goes on, and it's things to learn. And if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have fallen into St. John Vianney. I would have never met Pat Smith. I would have never met Chris. You know, you never know what would happen. So I just trust in where I am and what happened, and you have to learn from it and forgive people. That's really it.
Now that we have this great audience, does anybody have a question for this great panel? Just raise your hand. We got mic runners. Does anybody have a question for Anthony or Chris or the family here? We got a mic over here. You got a big mouth. You can talk if you want.
For Anthony, first of all, anyone that wrestles is brave. Anyone that goes for it like you is amazingly brave. But anybody that lets a camera follow him through the whole thing is off the charts heroic. Did it get to any point where you're like, okay, that's enough camera, I've had it? Because it was everywhere.
I mean, it helps being blind. No, you know, it really came down to my brother saw this, like, me, it's not just a wrestling story, like, it's more than that. It's about not giving up and just dealing with adversity that you're always going to be given in life, and just like anyone has their cross to bear. And it's like, I was just fortunate for my story to be captured, because everyone has a story, and if my brother's vision and my vision through this was just to help people and inspire and motivate people. It wasn't about like becoming the next state champ. Like, yeah, that would have been unbelievable, and like, God, I don't know, but this is just reality. And like, if it motivates, it's like in the end of that article, like if it motivates one person just to get up and stop feeling sorry for yourself, or just self-motivate or inspire yourself, it's a win. So to be able to have this, and you know, it was a little weird at the time, I guess, a little more pressure, I guess you'd say, and for wrestling with these cameras and like the whole state champ goal, but in the end and the bigger picture of it, it just, you couldn't ask for a better story. And to help, you know, if it helps anyone, like I said, it's a win. So that's really it.
That's amazing. Great job. Does anybody else have a question for this panel here? Anybody have a question? Pat, I have a question for you. I talked to Chris about this. The scene, you know, I know as a editor, there's obviously things that don't always make into the film. You know, one thing that we talked about is Pat's quest that he had for a state champion. Pat, did you see yourself a little bit in Anthony on that quest?
I mean, wrestling, it's a violent sport, you know. So I know if it's baseball, you're telling them, hey, you know, keep your bat back and this or that. I mean, wrestling, it's basically a controlled fight. You know, you gotta pump them up, you gotta inspire them, you gotta get them ready to go. And I'd say there was some tough love in that, but it's a violent sport. You know what I mean? So. Under the layers of macho whatever, I mean, I love him. I care about him. He knows it, you know. But I mean, all wrestlers need to be pushed. If that's answering it.
And the other thing that I want to know is, looking back at your career as a wrestler, I know you missed that. I know you said in the documentary, it's something that you kind of never get over. Both you and Anthony. Do you think that's true? You just never get over that? It's always something, but it makes you push further on something else that you do? Losing the state champion gives you hunger in something else. Do you feel that way?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's an edge or a chip on your shoulder or motivation or drive, but it's, you know, I kind of look at it as, you know, if I could wrestle, I can do anything. You know, I've done roofing for $10 an hour, you know, and I looked at it and I said, hey, you know, wrestling was tougher than this, you know. So whether it's college, whether it's that, you know, I believe there's nothing in my life I can't do because I made it through a wrestling season, you know.
How about you, Anthony? Do you feel the same way? Did wrestling make you better or make you more motivated in something else that you do in your life?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think I was a pretty self-motivated person growing up. I was the type of kid that someone would say, you can't do that, and I'd be like, oh, watch me, you know, like, you can't ride a bike, all right, I'm gonna go ride into that parked car. Like, it happens, but I just do things because I'm so stubborn, I don't want people to tell me I can't. So when people started saying, like, oh, you can't wrestle, or you wouldn't be good at this, it's like, oh, I'm a really fat 7th grader, but I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to work real hard. So it gave me that drive. Like, everything in my life I see now, like, whenever I'm starting something, I always feel like I'm behind, so I have to work that much harder to get to where everyone else is. And like, even with when I started playing music, like, I was terrible. My dad called me stone hands. My sister Maya wouldn't let me play in the same room. That, like, it was embarrassing. And like, I just practice every day, like, nonstop. And now we're like jamming all the time, playing at restaurants and bars. And it just shows, like, it's the lesson I learned in wrestling. Like, hard work really does pay off. I remember when I first started wrestling in 7th grade, my first goal was for a couple months when I was going to off-season tournaments trying to win matches. First goal was just to score a point in a match, and it didn't happen for like 3 months. And then I finally like started scoring points, and then you see yourself little by little start to make these steps, and it doesn't happen in one night, and that's where people get discouraged because they set these goals and then see how much has to go into them. And you know, it's the people that stick it out and stick through it all and push through it, and you really get rewarded. And I'm here to tell you that. So you just got to keep pushing whatever your goal is, and you can't let little failures or what you think are failures hold you back. Because me and my dad always say, we don't lose, we learn. So that's it.
We got a question in the audience right now.
I have 2 questions for Anthony, who is one of my 59 grandchildren. Anthony, tell me what you have learned from the time you spent at St. Lucy's School for the Blind.
I learned one thing that really stands out to me, and it's the only disability is a bad attitude. So.
Excellent. Question number 2 is, what have you learned from all of the losses you incurred during wrestling?
I learned that the losses don't define you if you don't let them. It's how you bounce back from each loss and what you learn from it. If you don't take a lesson from each loss, it's just a waste. You're just, it's just going to keep happening, you know. If you take from your losses the lessons, then you don't let that happen again, and you continue to grow as a person every day. So that's the most important, is that we keep growing no matter what we're doing. Did I pass?
Now, before I move on to the next question, those seem a little planted questions over there.
That's what I'm saying. At least give me like an A, B, C, or D, like for the multiple choice.
I have a question for your sister, since she has the mic in her hand already. What did you enjoy most about watching this film, looking back about basically 5 years later?
You know, what I really enjoyed was the beautiful way Chris captured such a fast moment in our life. Because this whole movie was such a short time in the amount of time that we've been alive, that if you blink, you can almost miss it when you're living through it. But looking back and seeing it, and seeing, you know, just the support of our family, because we do, you know, my mother's one of 13, my grandpa mentioned we have about 60 cousins. We're a massive family, and to just see the pure love and the pure support that everyone gives each other, it's so special, and it's so special to me to have my kids see that. My daughter that's here and my son that's not. But, you know, I think that would just be it, just the sheer support that everyone pulled together, because even when Anthony loses, because it would be such a better movie if he won. You know, I mean, that guy said it earlier, you know, about the winning. But even when he loses, you just see it. You see the disappointment on everyone's face, but it's not that they're disappointed in Anthony, it's that they're disappointed for Anthony, because they just feel his pain, because his pain is their pain. Because we're such a big, close family. I mean, we're kind of crazy, but we really are there for each other, and Chris captured that so perfectly, so beautifully. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Does anybody have a question in the audience? Do we have a question up there? We got one up there. Could somebody bring a mic up there? I think the mic's coming.
Don't worry, I can read lips.
So for all of us living here right on the Jersey Shore, all those images of Sandy and post-Sandy and the recovery really resonate. And I can certainly see a lot of the parallels, but what were you trying to kind of communicate to people outside in New Jersey who are going to hopefully see this?
Chris, I think that's a good question for you.
The whole Sandy bit was actually like an accident. It was that day that Ollie was back from LA. We were driving and Anthony was grumpy in the car. And we were going back to the house to do an interview with him, and he was really pissy. So we were like, let him take a nap, and and Ollie was like, did you see the destruction that's down the road? And I was like, no, I haven't yet. And I was absolutely floored by what I had seen. I only live like 30 minutes from here, but I hadn't been to the beach yet to see it. And I thought there was just something so, I mean, it was devastating, but also extremely beautiful and something you don't normally see. So we spent the next couple hours, Ollie and I, while he was resting, after practice, he needed a break, we just started filming stuff. And it became like a side project of mine that whenever I didn't have anything to do with the matches or the tournaments or Anthony or whatever, I'd go to the shore. And I immediately that day, I began to tie in this idea that Sandy would play a backdrop for the film. And you know, I didn't know where the story was going to go, but I thought it was, I don't know if it was like an ominous backdrop, but it did end up kind of playing like that. And then eventually, you know, when he did lose, the idea for me we always knew the beach the shore would be restored and the boardwalk would be restored. So, you know, it does play a backdrop. The shore is its own character. And it kind of, you know, it plays that idea of this kind of dark time, what's coming. And then at the end, when he does lose, obviously the sun does rise again and life moves on. So it was a conscious effort, you know. Some people haven't gotten it. I figured all you guys would. Majority of people get it. If they don't get it, I don't care.
I think we have another question over there in the audience. Could you stand up so he can see with the mic? There you go.
So this is a question for Anthony. It seems like from the movie that you've gotten a lot of opportunities from your story being told, from hiking in Peru to, like, I don't know if you're still planning on working towards the Olympics thing. Will there be another movie in 2020? So what has that been like with the publicity of your story and dealing with that? And have you had any cool opportunities? And just how do you feel about having your story told?
Okay, so at first, I hated it. I hated every newspaper article, like every newspaper writer coming up to me. Oh, can I do a story on you? Yeah, sure. I'm going to ask you the same questions every other newspaper article asks you. And it's like, how many times are you going to hear blind wrestler when you're training so hard just to be like everyone else and like just to be identified as like a normal teenager, you know, just working like everyone else and trying to fit in. And I was just like branded with this blind thing, you know, so it was really tough at first. And people were always saying, oh, it's so motivating, it's really inspiring to see you doing what you're doing. And I never knew any different. That was the thing. Like I was like trying to keep up with all 60 of my cousins growing up. So I was like skateboarding with them, and I still skateboard, and I was surfing. I remember the first time I went surfing, my brother didn't tell me you were supposed to jump off the board. So when you get to the beach, so the fins dug in the sand, and I went face first on the beach. And that was the first surfing experience. So, but, and then, so the story, what are you saying? Sorry, it's hard when someone whispers in your ear. And then, so with as it went on, like the people saying to me, you know, reaching out actually from reading like newspaper articles that I've done, and they're saying like I actually helped them like get inspired or motivated to do something that they've wanted to do in a long time, and it really touched me. So I was like, oh, I need to, you know, actually help people. Like I'm in a position where I could do this. So I started using that, and now like with the, I thought it was like kind of done, you know, once wrestling was over and everything, and then the motivational speaking came about, and this trailers started popping up, and the whole judo thing happened, where they reached out to me saying, hey, you know, would you be interested in training for the 2020 Paralympics in Tokyo? I'm like, I think you have the wrong number. and that goes on, and it's like, I'm trying now, my goal is just to inspire people and give them motivation and to, you know, use my lessons I've learned in life from other people and my experiences to help others. And what I'm doing is creating a brand for myself for people to follow me, and it's called ASF Vision, and my buddies actually are handing out flyers when you guys leave. If you would pick one up, it would mean a lot to me to go, you know, put your email on the website, and I can send you updates on what I'm doing. And on the website, it's my social medias, so you can follow like where I'm at. I've been doing a lot of traveling and training and music and everything. So, and the motivational speaking. So if you guys would give it a follow, it'd really mean a lot to me, and it would really be supportive. So that's where I'm at right now.
Great answer.
A lot going on. Also, the next thing coming up for me is I have the World Championships in Portugal for judo in November, so you can follow along with the journey of that also.
I think we have time for one more question. Does anybody have another question for us before we... Go ahead.
Ants, how's it going? So I know the weekend's coming up, but tell me about Motivation Monday.
Seems like another planted question over here.
I'm starting a vlog, and it's going to be a video vlog. I've been like experimenting with it on like Snapchat and Instagram, and it's been different days, and everybody's been loving the Motivational Mondays, so it's been a big hit lately. So you got to follow along, and you'll know what that's about. Can't tell too much.
Is there another question? I thought I heard somebody else say. We have another question right at the hat.
Yeah, you, Ant Seal.
Yes, this is another question from Anthony. It probably sounds like another plant, but after climbing the Andes, what's the next mountain on your list to climb, or you're just thinking of shooting for Everest?
It's funny you say that. Actually, after the Andes, I won another scholarship following year, 2 years later, to go whitewater rafting in the Grand Canyon. So I went 90 miles in the Colorado River in Arizona, and then did a huge hike out of that also, and it was just an unbelievable experience going through the Grand Canyon for 7 days and just sleeping under the stars that I couldn't see, and just like not being in a tent though, and just really experiencing nature and being out there and being challenged. So I always try to find ways to challenge myself and make me a better person, and with those things you really learn how to build a team, and that's like a big, it's really important in life to have a network of a team that you can really trust. And basically with your life, what you have to do when you're in the Andes Mountains with a 5,000-foot cliff on your right with only like 2 feet like space to walk on, and you have a sighted person in front of you telling you, oh, just fall left, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna trust them. So you know, it's really important in life to build a team with people that have the same goals and see what you see, and just can trust in what you do.
Thank you very much. That was great. Before we end it, I do want to ask Sue and Robert, is there anything that you want to say? Give you guys the last word.
Come on, Mom.
You know, it's really hard. It was really hard for me to watch this movie the first time I saw it. It was, you know, nobody wants their family story splattered along the thing. You know, nobody needs to see a, you know, big fat guy with a bad twitch, you know, for his son's wrestling match, and you know, every time you watch it, you wish he would do something different to beat Joey Drew and Joey Schultz. I said Joey Drew, I'm sorry. Joey Schultz and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, like, you know, it's, you know, like the thing I think I want to say is to Chris, and it's that, you know, we're at a film festival and it's a movie, and you have to understand the time it took to put this together. I mean, Chris, with no budget, with no finance, no backing, came to just about every one of Anthony's matches, numerous practices, to the house, speaking with people. He piles up tons and tons of footage that eventually sits there for years while you have a kid and you get married. And by the way, we should thank Jenny Sikorsky, who's here, because you know, really what happened was for Chris to finish this film, it had to become his mistress, you know, so we appreciate that Jenny was willing to share like that. So, you know, and Joey.
I think we have a future director coming on stage right now.
So the amount of time that then it took to edit all that footage and to put it into a story, and you know, we're very critical of you know what goes on in our lives and how we're portrayed, and you know, it's got to the point where I started to say to myself, you know, for everything this movie isn't, there's 10,000 things that it is, and you know, I'm thankful that Chris, like, you know, did a really wonderful job with the story, and so Chris really deserves and really to have a great applause for that. And the only other thing is, you know, I always say to Anthony, and I say it publicly to him, and I say it in private, and I say it to him all the time. You know, Anthony, just remember that no matter what you do, you know, whatever accomplishment, whatever mountain you climb, that the next day you're the same jerk you were the day before. So, you know, just remember that while those things may seem important, you know, being a good person is really what we all need to be, and, you know, to get along with everyone and treat other people the right way. So here's Sue.
My dad never gets the last word.
Oh, okay. First of all, I just want to say, after I've seen this film for the third time, I'm really grateful for family, the supportive family like Maya was talking about. And when I look at it, it just like reminds me how life is a bunch of ebbs and flows. And if you can get through each one and be grateful, that's a good life, I think. You know, we've been through a lot of adversity. And the reason it brings to mind about family, I'm so grateful my father was able to see the movie. Sadly, my mother will never see it. She's home right now. I'm thinking of her. And we're all sad. It's a big family. She's the matriarch. So I would just like to say peace to everyone and live your life to the fullest. Thank you.
And I just want to say, on behalf of the Monmouth Film Festival, thank you very much. One last round of applause.